team visit sometime in that April, early May time while the school's still in session. Talk to people that are utilizing those that you have interest in whether it's, like I said, what type of program you're looking at, media centers, and we'll link you to a number of different places so that you can have that discussion. And then after that is moving forward with that later. But we don't want to hit you all in April, but what is this? So, comments, thoughts, input on this? I know, here's the fire hose, drink, I know, other than that, then this is more information today, so we wanted to provide that for you. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. It's a little past 6:30, so we'll start in our regular monthly meeting with the Community School Board of Trustees. I'd ask Mrs. Campbell to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Next is approval of the consent agenda items, which includes the approval of tonight's agenda, the minutes from the regular session of February 9th, payroll claims for February 12th, February 26th, and AP claims, approval of the personnel report, and I will read that report after we're done. Also, conditional approval for a senior trip to Cincinnati and conditional approval for the band trip to St. Louis. So I need a motion to accept the consent agenda items. I have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor of accepting tonight's consent agenda items, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The personnel report is a transfer of Michelle Dunham, transfer from the English Learners and Special Education Coordinator to Corporation Special Education Coordinator, effective this next school year. Classified staff leave of absence, James Voss, beginning February the 2nd and to the end of the school year. Recommendation, Elizabeth Smith May, cafeteria employee at the Tipton Elementary School. ECA staff, recommendation of Deidre Money, assistant track coach at Tipton High School. Grant Yoder, JV baseball coach at the Tipton High School. And volunteers, Scott Surveys, volunteer baseball coach at the high school. And Nick Halbrith, the volunteer baseball coach at Tipton High School. And next we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Clays.
Sir.
All right, thank you, sir. First of all, we wanted to congratulate our Lady Devils basketball team on just an outstanding run in the state tournament and a wonderful representation of Tipton Community Schools at the state finals. Just an awesome experience, and just excited that our girls had such a great season and were able to go that far. We plan to recognize them in person in April, and so kind of getting back to normal. And so, again, congratulating them on just a great run. Also want to congratulate Aiden Stanley, ended up 15th place at the swimming and diving state finals. Again, the first Tipton kid to get to that level. A wonderful opportunity for our kids and for him, and just very exciting that he was able to make that accomplishment happen. Also, I just wanted to brag on our board. Last Saturday, our board members sat in on some strategic planning with Dr. Jim Halleck, and I thought it went very well. We worked on vision statements, talked about critical issues, values, and beliefs, and we will continue to build on those and make decisions for our future as we are moving forward. So anyway, we will just kind of let you all know about that as everything develops. So, summer projects. We do have some summer projects that we are looking at, and just projects that we are going to handle ourselves. And so, essentially, what we're looking at is replacing lights in the bus barn. Is a little under $13,000. Air handler in this area, a little under $4,000. Also, replacing the electrical panel out at the football field, because that's, from what I understand, a pretty scary experience. So I've not had that opportunity to experience that, but definitely not good, specifically if it's raining. Anyway, and also we're going to be looking at just some different patchwork in our parking lots. Again, we have a lot of acres under asphalt, and we want to make sure we keep that well maintained. And so we'll be making some spot repairs on that as well. So that's all from my report.
Thank you. Next is Spotlight on Schools and Career Pathways in Block 8 by Mr. Stilson, Carrie Capshaw, and Christine Nichols.
Chris is the smart one of the bunch here. I gave her the option and she declined, so she actually knows what she's doing among the three of us. So just to kind of give you an idea, and I'm going to brag on my guidance department a little bit here. In the 3 years now that I've been principal, we have had a different set of guidelines for CTE, which is Career and Technical Education, for graduation in our pathways. All 3 years have been different. So keeping up with that is not an easy task whatsoever. And they've handled that really, really well. We've changed our course descriptions and that kind of thing along with it. The state, in their infinite wisdom, has come along and said, okay, you need to concentrate, you need to make sure you have computer science classes by 2023. 2022, we've had that for 2 years now. So we're really working proactively, and again, a lot of that comes from Carrie and Chris coming to me and saying, okay, this is coming up, we need to make sure we're ready for that, and we get that job done, which is fantastic on their part, and I can't praise them enough for that. So, this year has been extra challenging with all the COVID things that we've had to do. And the state, of course, decided that they were going to make another change to our CTE requirements. So we thank them very much for that. And then we throw on top of that, we're going to go from the Block 4 to Block 8 and all the things that come along with that in terms of, we can't deal with having to retake classes like we normally would, which is we put them in the opposite semester. So now we're going to be faced with either having to do a lot of summer school, which that's going to present its own challenges of trying to get kids to actually show up to summer school when we say you have to. That's always fun. And then along with that, their kids are going to have some of their electives have to be reduced because they may have to take the required courses rather than being able to take electives that they would rather take. So there's a lot of that. In addition, we're going to be cutting back the number of staff members, which for a high school, when you do that, you reduce the number of classes that you can offer. So all of those things, sharing staff, that all gets thrown on Chris and Carrie. And again, they have handled that better than I could ever hope for. And so I'll let Carrie kind of talk about what we're doing as far as the next level courses that the state has come through with the career and technical education stuff.
I don't know about you, Chris, but I think he's just saying nice stuff about us because we're here, so.
I'm just kidding. So I'll get you past this down.
So, as Rick was saying, you know, a lot of changes coming our way, and you know, just trying to stay ahead of the game. And I think just as a school, we have looked into this and tried to get ahead of the game as the state throws changes our way. So, what I'm passing down to you is a list of the new program, which is the next level programs of study. So this is the new CTE requirements with the incoming class, which will be the class of 2025. So I know there are a few 8th grade parents sitting on the board, so you probably saw this in a PowerPoint if you were at that meeting. So it's just a replication of that. But basically, as you look here, you can see we really, to date, have 7, 8-ish areas of focus that these kids could go into. So the nice thing is, when Chris and I met with 8th graders recently, we really encouraged, or mandated, said, okay, you got to pick one principal's course. So if you can see there, like this makes a lot of sense to me, but I get it may not to you. So if you look under that principal's level 1, basically the incoming class of 2025, they have to take principal courses in order to go on this CTE pathway, this cluster, and so they can take that concurrently with one of those concentrators A or B, or they can take it as a prerequisite. So we want freshmen to take as many of those principals as their schedule will allow. Most of them have spots for 3 if they took all principals classes. So several of our students signed up for 2 different ones, which is great. So for example, if they were thinking principles of ag and principles of business, those are probably our 2 broadest categories, so they could get a feel if they want to go into that. And then their sophomore year, when we're talking about, okay, what class do you want to take your sophomore year, then for example, they could take animal science, because we offer that. And then they could also take food science if it works in their schedule, or they could take advanced life science animals that following year. And then that would qualify them in that CTE pathway, which there are 3 boxes to the graduation requirements now, and this essentially checks box 3. So really looking at our core 40 students that are either college-bound or not college-bound, this is a way that they can check box 3. And it's basically by getting a concentration of academic courses in a particular career area, making them, you know, having them get the skills and knowledge they would need to either take that to the next level in education or take that to the career, out into the workforce. So, like we said, we're excited. You know, we always had these freshman level, you know, foundational courses. So a lot of that, when we talked to the teachers, Chris and I met with all the teachers in these departments, and they said, yeah, this is basically what I'm doing in my, you know, first year transportation class or my first year business class. This is what I'm doing. So we just simply have to play the game and change the number that the state says now and make sure that we're following that course description. But pretty much all those teachers said yes, that's what they were doing. So that just gives you an outline. And again, I think for a school our size to be able to offer 7 different opportunities to freshmen is awesome. And so we hope we, you know, keep those programs. And, you know, we talked to Dr. Glaze too and said, you know, some of these programs may start out having small numbers, but it's the idea that if it's going to help 10 kids graduate, well, that could potentially be 10% of our class, you know, as we look at some of these class sizes coming up. So just really value the vocational aspect of this, and I'm so glad we kept it around when we did, because it's going to save us quite a bit as we move forward with the state's requirements. So I guess that's my spiel on that. Did I have questions on any of that? Okay, so yeah, we are changing up course offerings, and that's why, but they're essentially the same courses, and I think that's it. If you have questions, let me know.
Just one thing real quick too, I know because we do send kids to John Hines, and we will continue to do that because they have programs that we just either don't have the equipment for, space for, we don't have an instructor that's qualified necessarily to teach those things. So John Hines is still going to be a part of the equation for our career and technical education, but we want to make sure that we have several areas for kids to be able to take those things in-house, because not every kid has room in their schedule to be able to go to John Hines. We're working on getting transportation, which has been a hang-up in the past. But even at that, there are still some kids who they want to stay here. And so it's very important for us to be able to have those offerings for those kids, so if they wish to stay here, they can. Like I said, if they want to go to John Hines, that's great too. But we got to make sure we hit both of those areas. So that's been a big focus for Carrie and Chris to do that. And like I said, they've done a wonderful job. I can't say enough for how hard they have worked and adjusted to all the different curveballs that have been thrown at them.
Thank you. Thank you to the high school guidance department for working through all that. Next is, we've got department reports to look through in our board packet. Facility and transportation from Mr. Wessel, student services from Mr. Clark, food services from Mr. Cole, and technology from Mr. Dietrich. Does anybody have any questions on those? Hearing none, we'll move on down the agenda with the financial report from Dr. Glaze.
Okay, it's always a good month when we actually, get more revenue than we're spending. So I thought I would put that in because I think that's really important because sometimes we can get a little gloomy on that. So anyway, the revenue did exceed expenditures, so that's great for the education fund. We still do have a sizable cash balance in our debt service as well as in operations. Debt service is about 1.1 million. Operations would be 1.2 million. So once again, good cash balance. With excess expenditures in education, we will need to watch in the upcoming months. If you take a look at some of the reports that we're kind of forecasting out, we do get a little close. So we just, so we'll kind of watch that and we will keep monitoring the expenditures, and we may need to appropriate some money out of the rainy day fund in order to cover that by near to the end of the year. So, but once again, we're very fortunate to have the cash balances that we have, and once again, it's always good to be on the plus side. So,
Do you have an approximate amount of the rainy day fund, Dr. Glaze?
it's around 3.2 million. Yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Glaze? Move on to new business. First up is consideration to approve Apple computer lease. It is being recommended that the lease with Apple to purchase 145 MacBook Air laptops and 240 iPads with connected keyboard be approved. This is a 4-year lease, and we have done this in the past. The total amount of the lease is $250,463 at 0% financing, with an annual payment of $62,615.75, and that would begin on March the 21st of this year. These new devices will be distributed to students grade 9 for the MacBooks and 5 and 6 for the iPads. Need a motion and a second to approve the lease. Motion and a second. All in favor of approving the Apple computer lease, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is the permission to advertise for fertilization and weed spray. Permission is being asked to advertise for fertilization and weed spraying bids. This would be done in time for the 2021 growing season, and it would be a 1-year contract. Bids would be approved at the March 23rd board meeting, and it is recommended that the board give permission to advertise for the fertilization and weed spraying bids for 21 and 22. Need a motion and a second.
I move to advertise for permission for fertilization and weed spraying.
We have a second. All right, all in favor of advertising the fertilization and weed spraying, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next is permission to cancel any outstanding checks. All warrants or checks outstanding and unpaid for a period of 2 or more years as of December 31st of each year shall be declared void according to Indiana Code 5-11-10.5-2. It is recommended that the board approve cancellation of these outstanding warrants and checks. Need a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second to cancel, permission to cancel outstanding checks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is consideration to approve the proposal from Church Hiddle and Antrim to Community School Corporation's legal counsel is Church Hiddle and Antrim. The firm has a local office here in Tipton. and also one of the largest educational law offices in the state. Churchill and Antrim charges Tifton Community School Corporation an hourly rate for the day-to-day services. The proposal establishes a monthly fee for services of $2,000. The fee covers all the day-to-day services the firm provides for the district. This monthly fee will provide a substantial savings for the corporation versus current billing structure. It is recommended that the board approve this proposal from Churchill and Antrim. A motion and a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next is consideration to approve the MOU for summer school teacher pay. Our current collective bargaining agreement has no language regarding summer school pay for certified staff. We met with representatives from the Tifton Education Association and agreed upon an hourly rate of $37.50 per hour. The MOU was established to set the hourly rate for summer school as well as prep time and hours of service. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve this MOU. Need a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of the summer school teacher pay, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Consideration to approve Board Policy 8462 on second reading. Board Policy 8462 has updated language regarding child abuse and neglect that will align Tifton Community School Corporation policy with state law. It is recommended the board approve the policy changes on this second reading. Need a motion and a second.
I move to approve board policy 8462 on the second reading.
Have a second. A motion and a second to approve Board Policy 8462. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is consideration to approve a resolution regarding House Bill 1005 and Senate Bill 412. The Indiana General Assembly during the 2021 legislative session is considering the establishment of education savings accounts, ESAs, that funnel state funding to parents who withdraw their children from public schools, as well as a significant expansion of the Indiana School Choice Scholarship Program. The School Board of Tifton Community School Corporation opposes and condemns the establishment of an education scholarship accounts and the expansion of the Indiana Choice Scholarship Program as proposed by members of the Indiana General Assembly in House Bill 1005 and Senate Bill 412. Legislative Service Agency predicts this bill will cost public schools $67.6 million in revenue loss over the two-year budget. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve this resolution as written. Motion, we have a second. Motion and a second for the resolution regarding House Bill 1005 and Senate Bill 412. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is a motion to extend contracted bus drivers' contracts for 1 year. Tifton Community School Corporation currently has 9 contracted bus routes. The current contract expires May the 20th of this year or the last day of the school year. We are aware the number of contracted routes need to be reduced since our enrollment is in decline, but an additional year is needed to study routes and make those recommendations. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees extend the current contract 1 year with an expiration date of May the 19th of 2022 or the last day of school. Motion in a second.
I move to extend the contracted bus driver contracts for 1 year.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor of extending the bus contracted drivers 1 year, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Next is on the agenda is other matters to come before the board. Anybody have anything?
I do, Gary.
Mrs. Campbell has a report.
Hi, I attended a city RDC meeting on February 18th last month. Last month I reported that the city RDC took over 6 properties and we're going to be disposing of them. At the last meeting, we developed guidelines for the 6 properties. Just a quick recap. Each property will have an offering sheet, and on that sheet will be the information that you need to provide in order to submit a bid. 2 appraisals will be done hopefully back by March 15th. The offering sheets will be available March 25th and can be picked up. Bids are due back April 26th. May 25th, the RDC will open the bids. And our next meeting is March 25th at 3 p.m. If anyone has any questions about those properties or the process, feel free to contact me and I can answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. Next up is mention of advisory committees. The Personnel Committee is going to meet next Monday. And that includes Mr. McNew, Mrs. Sloan, and myself. Is everybody available? Business Affairs Committee is meeting on April the 19th, and May the 17th, Facilities and Technology Committee will be meeting. Some events coming up are the end of the 9 weeks is March the 10th, tomorrow. Daylight Savings Time begins this weekend. Strategic Planning with Administrators is next Wednesday. Special board meeting is the 23rd of this month at 6:30 in the boardroom. Spring break begins on March the 26th, and the students return on April the 5th. Next, we'll go to comments from the community.
Thank you. I have first up for 3 minutes, and I will start the timer, is Mrs. Carrie Capshaw.
You start the timer now, or you run?
Please run. Please do. Yes.
Since I have to be here anyway, I just get the bang for my buck here. So I would like to address the board on athletic eligibility based on middle school performance. And I debated whether to approach the board from a parental perspective or from a counseling perspective, and the truth is I really can't separate them. So as a parent of an 8th grade student and as one of the high school counselors, my thoughts align with what I want to say. So our current policy, I'm told is a board policy, is that students' grades in 8th grade will impact their athletic eligibility as freshmen. And this year alone has been trying. So from a parent, I've seen my 8th graders struggle more than I ever have, and I've talked to other parents, and so I mentioned on behalf of the 8th grade parents I've talked to, I would say something to the board. And so the fact that we have students that are failing that normally wouldn't fail, and that might impact their start in high school. So just to give you a number, if we were to take that from the number of failures, number of kids who failed, we had 57 students that failed, 8th grade students that failed a class first semester as their final grade, which is almost half the class. So we're saying that half the class, if we went with that, could be ineligible for a high school sport. So I see that as troubling. From the counselor's hat, you know, when Chris and I present to 8th graders, we always talk about a fresh start, that guess what, your middle school career doesn't carry over to your high school, that you're starting fresh, and if you haven't tried a sport, you haven't tried a club, get involved. Your teachers don't know you, so if you didn't have a very good work ethic, start fresh, you know, your freshman year, that's what it's about. But then we're somewhat being hypocritical, we're like, well, hey, you get a fresh start, but wait a minute, no you don't. If you had F's here, now you can't play a sport, for example. So, you know, I don't know all those kids on that list, but of the 57, I'm sure some would like to play football or cross country, and that would be good for them. We encourage them to get involved because the more they're involved, the more successful they tend to be. Also, it helps check a box, those boxes I was talking about. Box 2 is about employability skills, and sports and other activities can check that box. So I just feel like we're doing the kids in our school a disservice by holding them accountable for something they did as 8th graders when it's going to impact their freshman eligibility. It's not an IHSAA rule, it's a Tipton Community School Corporation rule. So I would just like the board to look over that policy and really consider if that's what's in the best interest of our kids, and possibly move to change that policy.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Capshaw. Next.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Next is Mrs. Denise Keough. I'm not going to run this here. I just wanted to take a moment and let the board know that I was on the committee with TEA that worked through the MOU for summer school. We've had a lot of kids, I can only speak
speak for the high school, but we've had a lot of kids at the high school that failed classes that under a regular year, they would have been with us and we would have drugged them over that mark to get them a passing grade. This year's been difficult on all of the kids, and I don't know how long it's been since we've had high school, summer school. I wouldn't hesitate to guess maybe 25 years. And so the fact that we are recognizing that and offering this opportunity for some of those kids to get back on track, it's really appreciated by the staff who's looking at these kids who are coming back for their sophomore, their junior, their senior years next year, and they're feeling behind. This is something that's very much going to work for those kids that take advantage of it. And Mr. Plummer and Dr. Glaze and Mr. Clark were very kind to sit down and work through this. I felt it was a really good work session. Some of the things that we thought we were really going to have to beg the administration for, they were behind us and they supported us. And that's important because it's been really hard on the teachers this year too. So knowing that they were getting the respect from the administration to service our kids meant a lot to us. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kim.
Mr. Plummer? I guess
I just assume, is this just for high school, or will there be middle school and elementary opportunity? Or subsequent?
Next on the list.
Next on the list is Mrs. Christine Nichols.
No, I don't know the attendance.
Fair enough, great. And Mrs. Kelly Lightfoot. Thank you. And then lastly, Mrs. Luann Gillett.
Mr. Meeting asked my question about is it for all summer school for all? Will the students that go during summer school in high school, will they earn a credit for a class in that period of time?
They definitely can, yeah. And so it would be a combination of, like say for instance, we have several students that maybe didn't pass the first semester of English then in their freshman year, then we would want to offer freshman English as a real life class with an English teacher so that they can get what they really need to be successful. And then there will also be a combination of credit recovery software that we could use when we can't have a whole class because you have to have at least 15 kids in a subject in order to have a live class like that. But we're really pushing to get as many of those live classrooms as we possibly can. And the one really great thing about it is we will have transportation for the students, thanks to a grant that Mrs. Riverwall wrote for us, which is awesome. And then the kids will also have breakfast and lunch as part of the summer food program.
Dan, draw all your questions, William. All right, thank you. Next is the tournament. Need a motion and a second.
I move to